Peter Quill. Star-Lord hasn't really had the best reception among fans. While he started out strong, bringing much-needed comedy, one critical decision in Infinity War turned him into public enemy number one. When Thanos had killed his beloved Gamora, he decided to lash out at the Mad Titan instead of sticking to the plan of removing the Infinity Gauntlet from him. Without it, Thanos couldn't channel the power of the Infinity Stones. A plan that every Avenger put their lives on the line for was derailed by one impulsive outburst. While it was understandable, it wasn't justifiable, not when that one misstep led to the snap. Fans pretty much blamed Peter, but the signs of him being more boy than man were already there. He was always reckless, unserious, too focused on joking around, and honestly, just not the kind of leader you'd want in an apocalypse scenario. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 did a lot for his PR, but that was one era of Marvel where he was genuinely hated. Danny Rand. This iteration of Danny Rand had almost everything working against him. The budget, VFX, the choreography, the stunt work, and most fans thought Finn Jones had a poor take on the iconic character. See, one thing you never get wrong with Iron Fist is the martial arts. Let's just start there. The fight scenes in this show were laughably bad at best and a travesty at worst. Coming off the heels of a global hit like Daredevil, which was praised by critics and fans alike for its intense, gritty, and engaging fight scenes, it wasn't a good look when the one guy whose entire shtick is ancient Eastern martial arts just had way worse fights in comparison. Plus, Jones even said sometimes he only had 15 minutes to learn the choreo before a fight. It just made it hard to believe this guy fought a cage match against a dragon. You ever seen The Punisher and feel like he couldn't waste 10 guys? No, because the fight scenes show him doing that. The VFX and budget didn't do any favors. It meant they couldn't do much with the more mystical aspects of Iron Fist, and they couldn't show a lot related to Kunlun, which is pretty important to any Iron Fist story given it is where he comes from. Next, the handling of Danny Rand. See, most people are used to Iron Fist already being a competent hero after his time training in Kunlun. It's sort of the point of his training. Instead, we get a Danny that has to work his way up to the title. By the way, he doesn't get his iconic costume either. Plus, being sold as a four-man team with the likes of Daredevil, Jessica Jones, and Luke Cage, all characters with way better shows, just meant there wasn't much for fans with the Iron Fist. Captain Marvel. Carol Danvers was liked by some. Introduced as one of the most powerful characters in the entire Avengers roster, you would think fans would like a heavy hitter. However, Carol's sarcasm and deadpan tone didn't exactly land too well with fans. Most thought she was cocky, overly confident, and just not funny. Not in the same way Tony is. I mean, you can't expect people to be like Peter or Tony, but she didn't have that knack for being quippy. Fans also just didn't have much time with her. She was introduced in Infinity War, and most people honestly thought she was put in the film as a Mary Sue. It didn't help that, instead of solid character moments, connections with other established heroes, and compelling stories and dialogue, she was immediately sent on a mission to rescue Stark and Nebula as they drifted in space. The Marvels didn't help much either. It was one of the lowest-rated projects, and it only made minor improvements to her character in a time when audiences were going through serious superhero and Marvel fatigue. All in all, she has all the cool abilities for a likable hero, just none of the heart. Malekith the Accursed. Malekith's portrayal was almost up there with Danny Rand, except this time even the actor didn't like playing the role. Eccleston very openly claimed that he only did it for the money. Many fans were frustrated with how a major villain, the primordial leader of the Dark Elves and one of the oldest beings in the Marvel Universe, was handled. This character freely used the Reality Stone and created the Ether with it, something which we never saw too much of. Actually, we didn't see too much of Malekith either. He was on screen for maybe 10-15 minutes in total. Fans also claimed they wasted a phenomenal actor like Eccleston, previously Doctor Who, on a subpar script and film. The time we did get with Malekith was bland. He spoke mostly in a strange elven language, barely had expressive moments, and honestly just felt like he was being evil for the sake of being evil. Compare that to Loki or Thor, who are far more emotionally complex villains, and you can see why this one fell flat. Taskmaster. Taskmaster is one of the most popular characters in Marvel Comics. She's supposed to be this top-tier menace with photographic reflexes. In simpler terms, she can mimic the moves of any hero she encounters. She's a master tactician and spy too, which is why it was insanely infuriating to fans when the MCU version of Taskmaster was a hollow shell that had a robotic chip implanted into her to give her the iconic copying abilities of the OG. Fans hated the way Olga Kurylenko was wasted behind a character that barely had any of the charm of the original. Marvel nailed so many iconic heroes. so it was really disappointing when such a cool character was done so poorly. We got an edgy, brainwashed drone instead of a badass master martial artist that could run the gauntlet with any Avenger. The final nail in Taskmaster's coffin was being killed off-screen in Thunderbolts, which unfortunately sealed her legacy as a total waste. She-Hulk. She-Hulk's reception was a different kind of messy. The show wanted to be quirky and meta, but ended up dividing fans across the board. A lot of viewers went in expecting high-stakes superhero action, and instead got a legal sitcom with inconsistent tone and pacing, which was weird since Marvel clearly proved they could make sensational courtroom scenes about the legal system in Daredevil. The visual effects were also criticized early on. Her CGI model looked unfinished in many scenes, especially compared to Hulk's. Even though Jennifer Walters is a great character in the comics, the show didn't always give her the space to shine. Some episodes just felt tone-deaf, like her speech about how she's so much better than Bruce at anger management despite knowing what he's gone through. For a character with so much potential and strength, both physical and narrative, She-Hulk's live-action debut just really didn't tick any boxes. Ultron. Ultron was another case of false advertising. Though he's gotten much better fan reception over the years, a lot of the audience thought he wasn't what was promised. Firstly, the trailers made him seem a lot more threatening than he was. In the movie, he ended up being a sarcastic robot. The title was also a bit misleading, with the supposed age of Ultron barely lasting a week. Some fans say he still had a lot of long-lasting impact, being one of the key factors behind the eventual Sokovia Accords, a government initiative to control superhero activity. But in the movie itself, he didn't have much presence, especially compared to the villain before him, Loki, who was as much a joy to watch as the Avengers themselves. Ultron also seemingly was evil just for the sake of it, kind of like Malekith. He immediately turned on the team as soon as he was made. I mean, sentient robots always follow that trope, but maybe give it a minute. Gorr the God Butcher. Gorr the God Butcher had a lot of potential. In the comics, he was a terrifying figure who slaughtered gods across time and space, driven by the loss of his family and a wish to save them ignored by the gods. In Thor: Love and Thunder, none of that was realized. I mean, Christian Bale did what he could, but there's only so much he could do with a bad script. Fans were frustrated that Gorr barely did any actual god butchering on screen. Most of his violent acts were mentioned rather than shown, and the story never gave enough time for his vendetta to really sit and develop. He went from tragic figure to vague threat in a blink. His interactions with Thor and Jane were minimal, and the contrast between the goofy, jokey Thor bits and the dark, edgy, horror-esque Gorr bits made for a film with very conflicting tones. The Necrosword, which fuels his power, was barely explained. His scenes were often dark but hollow. For a villain with such rich source material and a top-tier actor behind him, Gorr felt like a missed opportunity more than a menace. That's a wrap for some of the most controversial characters in the MCU. If you have any more names, or if any of your least favorites are here, share it with us down below. Until then, for everything Marvel, from lore analysis to character facts, stay tuned.